In 1905, a 26-year-old patent office clerk backed into a corner in the final 3 weeks, frantically wrote a dissertation. That dissertation was later honored by the world as the theory of relativity. Fast forward to 2007, a paranoid CEO, just weeks before the launch, suddenly ordered the destruction of a multi-million-dollar phone prototype to start over from scratch. That prototype later became the legendary iPhone. Do you know what they have in common? These world-changing geniuses were actually master procrastinators. But they weren't lazy. They turned procrastination into an ultimate strategy. A psychological report shows that up to 95% of adults admit to procrastinating occasionally, and 20% consider themselves chronic procrastinators. We often beat ourselves up whenever we let work pile up. But do you know why the most successful people intentionally procrastinate and how we can turn this disease into our own secret weapon? Let's watch this video to the end to find the answer. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the Incubation Effect channel so we have more motivation to release more meaningful content. Related studies have found that 83% of successful people are intentionally procrastinating. You heard that right, intentionally procrastinating. Sounds absurd, doesn't it? Isn't procrastination a bad habit we always want to overcome? Today we will dive deep into this counterintuitive secret to success, helping you completely change your mindset about the art of procrastination. Let's ponder for a moment. If procrastination is truly useless, why hasn't it been eliminated through evolution? Since childhood, we've been taught that procrastination is the #1 enemy of success. But an evolutionary mystery might just flip your perception upside down. If procrastination really only brings harm, then why, after millions of years of natural selection, is this habit still deeply ingrained in our genes? The answer might make those who suffer from procrastination breathe a sigh of relief, because procrastination is perhaps a type of survival wisdom of our brains in chaotic times. Just like Albert Einstein waiting until the last minute to submit his dissertation on the theory of relativity, or Steve Jobs being willing to delay an entire project just because a button wasn't perfect. Top-tier masters all seem to be implicitly using a kind of creative procrastination. In psychology, there is a concept called the incubation effect. When you temporarily set aside a difficult problem, your subconscious is actually still quietly solving it in the background. I myself have experienced this many times. There are nights sitting down to write a script where ideas are just blocked. The more I try to force out words, the more hollow they feel. But when I decide to close my laptop, take a walk, or simply take a shower, brilliant ideas suddenly flash into my mind. Our brains need moments of rest to piece together scattered data into a complete picture. Looking back at history, in 1984, Apple was developing the first generation of the Macintosh computer. At that time, the development team had finished the design right on schedule and was preparing to enter the production phase. However, Steve Jobs suddenly announced that the launch date had to be delayed because he felt there was still a crucial unresolved issue: the user interface. At that time, everyone thought he was crazy. Competitor IBM had already released a similar product and the window of market opportunity was gradually closing. But he still adamantly demanded a redesign of the interface, introducing the revolutionary mouse and graphical user interface. As a result, when the Macintosh was officially launched, it completely transformed the personal computer industry and laid the foundation for Apple's legendary status. This decision at the time was clearly an act of procrastination. He could have entirely launched the product on time to gain a market advantage, but he chose to delay. Hidden behind it was a profound strategic mindset, as he knew some things are worth waiting for and some perfection is worth pursuing. But is Apple's case too unique? After all, not everyone is a world-changing entrepreneur. So for ordinary people like us, what does strategic procrastination mean? In 2023, psychology professor Christopher Harvey from the University of California, Berkeley led a 5-year study tracking 2,000 successful people across various professions. The results were astonishing, with a whopping 83% of those surveyed stating they consciously procrastinated on certain tasks to enhance overall productivity and creativity. Even more interestingly, not only did they not view procrastination as a problem, but they also considered it a key working strategy. Professor Harvey pointed out that the procrastination of successful people usually has 3 prominent characteristics: selectivity, purposefulness, and strategic nature. They don't blindly procrastinate on everything, but selectively delay less important tasks to give themselves more thinking space and creative time. To illustrate this more clearly, let's look at the great scientist Charles Darwin. Everyone knows he was the proponent of the theory of evolution, but few notice that his lifetime masterpiece, On the Origin of Species, was actually delayed from publication by him for a full 20 years. From the end of his voyage returning to England in 1836 to the book's release in 1859, He spent 23 years perfecting the theory. Within that, there were a full 20 years of him constantly hesitating and procrastinating to gather more evidence. He knew his theory would rock the religious concepts of the time, so the argument had to be completely irrefutable. This seemingly unreasonable procrastination was actually an extremely serious scientific attitude. If he had rushed to publish early, it is very likely the theory would have been stifled due to a lack of convincing evidence, and the scientific progress of humanity could have been set back by 100 years. In reality, strategic procrastination isn't encouraging you to ignore deadlines. Rather, it helps you allocate your time and energy more smartly. Take Amazon founder Jeff Bezos as an example. He has a highly famous delayed decision-making method. For important but non-urgent and reversible decisions, he intentionally procrastinates, giving his team enough time to discuss. When considering stepping into the cloud computing sector, he asked the team to spend 2 years researching. The result was that when their cloud service launched in 2006, it had a mature technological foundation and a perfect business model, bringing in tens of billions of dollars every year. This intentional procrastination is not laziness, but wisdom. According to statistics from a prestigious business magazine, businesses that hastily launch unpolished products typically suffer an average loss 3 times higher than companies that patiently optimize their products before launching. So how do you distinguish between strategic procrastination and regular procrastination? A collaborative study between Harvard University and Columbia University identified 2 forms: passive procrastination and active procrastination. Passive procrastination is due to a lack of discipline and a fear of failure, leading to unconsciously pushing back schedules. Meanwhile, active procrastination is a conscious strategy aimed at using time pressure to stimulate creativity. I believe many of us have experienced the feeling of holding our phones and scrolling through social media for hours to avoid a difficult task. That is toxic, passive procrastination. But if you actively close your documents, go brew a cup of coffee, and give your brain an hour of not thinking about that work anymore, that is active procrastination. To train the ability of active procrastination, we can apply core strategies from psychologists. The first thing is to learn how to distinguish between important tasks and urgent tasks. Many tasks that seem urgent are actually not important at all. It's just that others are putting pressure on you. Dare to push back urgent but pointless tasks to focus on what truly matters. Next, establish boundaries for procrastination. Active procrastination does not mean delaying indefinitely. There must be a clear deadline. Furthermore, take advantage of the delayed time to think creatively and practice divergent thinking. And another extremely important mindset is cultivating a done is better than perfect mentality. Sometimes, pursuing extreme perfection leads to stagnation. We can see this clearly through the case of Marissa, a creative director in the advertising industry. When receiving a new project, she never immediately calls a meeting to brainstorm. Instead, she spends 2 days going to museums, watching movies, or strolling in the park to incubate ideas. Only exactly 3 days before the deadline does she sit down for focused work. Her ideas are always significantly more breakthrough than those of colleagues who dive into work right away. She understands that ideas are like brewing wine. They need time to ferment. If you wonder whether you are making excuses for lazy habits, ask yourself if you are pushing this task back to have more thinking space, if you have a clear deadline, and if this affects other important tasks. If all the answers are yes, you are on the right track. Why are we always taught to stay away from procrastination? This is largely related to the traditional education system, which was built during the industrialization era to train workers who strictly adhere to discipline and time on the assembly line. But in today's creative economy era, the most important thing is not how fast you complete the work, but how much value you can create. The World Health Organization once officially recognized burnout syndrome as a common occupational phenomenon, largely stemming from a hustle work culture of relentless exhaustion. Instead of forcing employees to work like machines, innovative corporations like Google have encouraged employees to spend 20% of their time pursuing independent projects. This strategic laziness has birthed breakthrough products like the Gmail system or handy sticky notes. Let's try a thought experiment. If you allow yourself to intentionally procrastinate on certain things, you will have more space to reflect on the truly important issues in your life. Throughout history, from great figures to outstanding entrepreneurs, we recognize a profound lesson. Speed is not the only measure of greatness. In an era of information overload and a fast-paced lifestyle, it is very easy for people to fall into the trap of pseudo-busyness. We are busy chasing after other people's urgent matters while neglecting what is truly important. Applied in reality, you don't need to tightly pack your schedule every day. Bravely create white spaces. When faced with a major decision about career or relationships, allow yourself to take a step back, go for a walk, or drink a cup of tea. Let your subconscious have space to work. Remember, brewing wine takes time, and so do brilliant ideas. In your current life, is there any task or project you are procrastinating on, and do you think that procrastination is active or passive? Please politely leave a comment below to share your perspective for everyone's reference. If you find today's knowledge useful and want to explore more interesting counterintuitive perspectives, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the Incubation Effect channel. Your support is the greatest motivation for us to release more high-quality videos. Thank you for watching, goodbye, and see you in the next video.